What I think is really driving so much of the unrest in the world is that people just don't feel safe. They've given up a lot of their power to governing bodies and agencies that they no longer trust. We're also going to be exploring with this vermaculture system that is basically using worms to eat a lot of the compost that is coming out of the community. And those worms are able to generate that into extremely healthy soil.
Is there something that is your daily must do when it comes to self-care, morning routine, evening routine, whatever it might be? Is there something that you're just I love this and need this wholeheartedly to be able to do my day-to-day and feel like the best version of myself?
In the United States especially, there's this sentiment that everything has to be big and impactful and everybody is so individualistic. We are all individuals for sure, but when we really understand our interdependence on each other and into the natural world, I actually think that there's a feeling of much more harmony.
This is Willpower.
So I got on a plane and flew to Panama, and from there I got on a puddle jumper and flew to Playa Venao. I had some dear friends down there. We had an amazing time together, connecting, met some of their other friends in the mix, just incredible, intelligent, eco-conscious community. And in the midst of that, I connected with Caroline Howell. And her story is such a powerhouse story that I wanted to share it on the show. And I knew after some conversation with her that we could sit down in this beautiful house and sit on some comfy couches and take a deep breath of Pacific air and talk about what happens when she, a former private equity powerhouse, decides to trade in her spreadsheets for soil. She co-founded Canopy Venao, a regenerative development in Panama, rewriting the rules of how we build, live, and coexist with nature. And I want you to listen in because the ways that she is doing this with a living system model it's quite beautiful. From planting 25,000 trees to protecting the endangered Azuero spider monkey, everything she's doing with the water systems down and around this property, Caroline is designing a living answer to one bold question. If we could recreate the world we live in, what would it look like? This episode is about courage and consciousness and the wild blueprint for a more connected future.
So today I'm so thrilled to be sitting with you in Panama, Caroline Howell, to share your vision for everything and the beautiful work that you're doing here down in Playa Venao.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for coming all this way to do a podcast with us.
I came all this way. We're going to dive really into your story, your vision for the future, all the work that you're doing down here so tirelessly, and just in a very distant land than the land that I'm used to living in. So I've been getting an opportunity to feel into everything that this area of Panama has to offer and really seeing you beginning to feel into this initiative that you're leading around reforestation, habitat restoration, regenerative agriculture, and conscious community design. And I really want to lean in on that by just asking the first question to you, which for everyone who's listening, Caroline had a very different background than the space that she's working in right now, and just getting a little understanding of how you went from private equity to the vision that you have now, or maybe something that was was there a challenging moment in your career or something that came up with you that led you to do what you're doing in this moment?
Yeah, so I spent most of my career in investment banking and private equity, mostly doing every type of mergers and acquisitions. And so I came to a place where right before I moved to Panama, the last thing that I did in the United States was help one of my clients purchase a little software company. And I ended up operating that company. So I went in as the CEO of that company. And it was really interesting because it was actually an outdoor tech company. So we built websites for government agencies to manage their outdoor hunting and fishing licenses that they were selling for permits. And it was really interesting because I came to learn through this experience that so much of conservation dollars come from hunting and fishing, which a lot of people sometimes demonize to not be in alignment with conservation initiatives. And I really came to understand through this that, actually a lot of these processes can really work together. These hunting and fishing companies and money is actually coming in to fund a lot of land restoration. And that was a really important knowledge that I keep with me in terms of what we're doing here. But I think by the time that experience came around, I was really burned out in my career. I was working a lot of hours, traveling all over the world, which was really fun and sexy in a way. It was like this cool, I was a young woman in this pretty male-dominated world. I had so much support all around me, but I was just really participating and living in a really extractive lifestyle. And I didn't feel well. Like I came here and I was sick in a lot of different ways. I think that I internally knew and I had the intuition that there was something really off. I also had symptoms of that. I was really physically sick. I had spent time at the Mayo Clinic trying to understand what was going on with me. And ultimately, after we had exited that software company, I had a moment of pause and reflection and really just wanted to make a significant change in order to reset and to rethink the entire system that was occurring in my life, and had the opportunity to move down here. I came down here for the first time on a trip, and it was really the first time that I was down here that I actually felt good in a really long time. Like I was like, wow, my system is at rest. My body felt better in ways that I didn't even know were, feeling bad. And that was what really drew me to this place, attracted to me to this place. And ultimately, I didn't come down here to decide to be a real estate developer. That wasn't really the initial intent. I came down here to reset my life in a lot of ways and to do that in a place where I felt really good. And everything that's kind of occurred since then has happened pretty organically and evolved and is still unfolding.
Yeah, it feels like a big ripple effect. Mm-hmm. So can you unpack a little bit of the development project that's going on here? Because I love that you're like, I didn't come down here to be a real estate developer, but now I am.
Yeah.
And also like the ecosystem that you're working to create here is a very different style of ecosystem than like a traditional real estate developer. So for anyone who's listening, it's like the story of this health journey and then expounding upon that and then feeling into the land.
So we have 2 real estate developments that we are working on in this area. One is called Cocobolo, and that is a development on the bay in Playa Venao. Playa Venao is an incredible beach town. It's about a 2-mile bay in the Azuero Peninsula. And people came here for the first time about 20 years ago. There was really nothing here. And so one of the most unique attributes of Playa Venao is that it's all brand new. People talk about building the new world. In a lot of ways, we're doing that here simply because there was nothing here before. This is all brand new development. And it adds to an interesting component to this place, which is that we didn't really displace a local community in the Bay of Playa Venao. And so everything is sort of new opportunity, new development, which is cool. And then we also have a development called Canopy that overlooks the Bay of Playa Venao. It's about 170 hectares of land that is... A portion of it was pasture land and a portion of it was reforested land done by the Smithsonian and Yale about 20 years ago. And so it's this half secondary forest, half pasture land that we are really developing in a way that works with the land. And so we have a very interesting opportunity, I think, to find and discover new ways of really developing inside of this ecosystem. And it's just been such a rewarding opportunity for me. I think as we've restored the land, there's been a lot of personal restoration in it as well, and all of that's still ongoing. But it's been a really amazing thing to align myself with the ecosystem, with the land, and really understand through my personal experience about as we do this development, we're really developing the interconnectedness of all of these things, both for me as my personal journey with it, the community, and then also along the land and the ecosystem that exists inside of it. So it's been, I think, a new way of discovering how to develop all of this together. And I think because of this new lens that we're looking at things through, it creates a very resilient ecosystem for all of us to participate in.
Yeah, and I can feel the level of sort of, everyone knows who you are around here and that you're doing this work and that there's such a deep desire for collaboration and for inclusion of the local communities. And even just being here for the few days that I've been here, knowing that it is new. You can feel that it's new. It's like dirt
it's a very new place.
And it's like, we're bouncing on the way here, driving through different parts of what feels like jungle landscape, and such like a beautiful opportunity to see that unfold. And really this point about not displacing things that are already here, it feels like really important and profound to have that as a baseline, a foundation with where you were. Mm-hmm. the thing for me that I feel like I want to share or open the lens on with people who are listening is a bit of like what I was saying to you as we drove here before we started recording. This like notion of like, where are we or where is the project at? You hear a lot of people talking about regenerative agriculture and rewilding, and it's just sort of like unpacking a bit of that terminology for you and for the land here, and maybe just specifying specifically what we're talking about here when it comes to that. Like, it's just like people are talking in my like hometown now, like, oh, well, if you look at the back of a carton of eggs, whether they say regenerative or not, you can see that it's one of 6 codes and it's all the same farm, and are there ethical practices happening or not? And then also that's really talking about agriculture in a different way, and a farming process that's different than that's happening here. But I think you can give us some insight on that.
So there are all of these terms being thrown around. I think in the regen space and the rewilding, the green, the environmental, the eco, the conscious. I know that these terms have definitions, but I think when people brand themselves this way, it's interesting. It's like, because we don't actually know what it means. I think that.
Yeah, and I was asking you earlier, like, are there certifying bodies, or is this a pay to play thing? Or like, there's all these different terms that people are tossing around.
Yeah. And so I think that in this world of esoteric terms, we've really tried to understand what are we doing, and how do we let that also be our guiding process of how we're doing it. And so we were using a regenerative real estate project, I think for various reasons, just of, regeneration has sort of entered the zeitgeist, and there's been a lot of projects that have been developed under that term that I don't think are actually regenerative. And so what we're really focusing ourselves on is that we as developers, and we are real estate developers, this isn't only a conservation play, this isn't, only a land restoration play. We very much intend to build very nice homes and sell them for a good amount of money, and it's a true investment. And what we really see, though, that we're developing is a full living system. And the reason that I think that that's important is because there's just so much unrest in the world in general. And I think that while we can place blame on that to the government or to capitalism, or how, there's all of this blame being thrown around, what I think is really driving so much of the unrest in the world is that people just don't feel safe. They've given up a lot of their power to governing bodies and agencies that they no longer trust. In their isolation from people and from their food systems and from their water that they're drinking, they have entered into this place where they don't actually know where their most basic foundations are coming from. And this creates a lot of, I think, feelings of unsafety, of mistrust, of unrest in general. And so what we're really excited about doing as developers is to rethink the home. So of course, we're going to be building houses. Those houses will be shelters for people. But we also really wanted to think as developers about how do we provide the basic needs to our residents. So food systems, water systems, incredible dwellings that can be made from also materials that can come from nearby or from the land. And once we can create this baseline level of safety for people, and also do it really well, like not just, give people a box of food that is from, we don't know where, but really allow people to go visit their food systems, to understand where their water is coming from, to really participate in what makes their entire life in a certain area. This is what we mean by living systems development. And so we're really excited to do this. I also think that in the systemic thinking of this, we also really come to understand that this connection to the land is a really critical part of it. When we're not living in isolation to these systems that keep us alive, we feel a lot safer, we feel a lot more resilient, we feel a lot less unrest in what's going on in the broader world around us, because we feel safe, we feel taken care of, we know that we're good. And so I think this is really the opportunity, and is actually what I would define as a new luxury. I mean, I've known in my own experience living in Vanau, in a community that is very safe. There's, very, very little crime in this entire area.
Like leaving that e-bike everywhere, being like, what is someone going to take this? It's been here for 2 hours, unlocked. And everyone's just pleasant and connected and watching out for each other.
It's a part of the culture in Vanau. It's also just, I don't even just attribute it to Vanau, though. It's this entire county is the most I think, safe county in almost all of Latin America. And so it's just a culture of this entire region. And it's something I really attribute to the Panamanian culture. All of Panama is one of the safest countries in Latin America. And you feel that when you come to Panama City, you feel incredibly welcomed. I mean, the culture here is just so amazing, and it feels really exciting to be a part of it. It's, you go to a lot of different countries and there's this kind of inherent skepticism, or you don't always feel very welcome. And here there's just a lot of generosity, a lot of open arms, a lot of assistance, a lot of collaboration. And so it's a really nice feeling, not just in Vanau, but specifically in the area where we are, the Azuero Peninsula. And I would extend that out to the entire country. It's just a really amazing place to be. So I think that all of those things are really helpful when we think about the home, right? Like, we want it to be safe. We want our kids to be able to go outside and play. We want to know where our food is coming from. We want to be drinking healthy water. And all of this, as it relates to the health and wellness community and the biohacking community, I mean, I think when we come to really understand that what we're trying to really use with all of these tools is to help the system come back to an optimal state of health, I really want to think through, how do we help people understand the baseline of that, which is, for me, food, water, air, healthy environments for our nervous systems. And so it's been really fun for me to think about a home and creating a home for myself first that has all of those components, and then be able to really think about doing a development that provides, or at least creates a foundation for all of that for people to be a part of. And so that's really what we're trying to do that's different. I think living systems is the closest thing that I can think through that identifies what it is. And it's in the sense that it's living, it's also ever evolving and hopefully improving and growing in its capacity and its identity and all of the potential in it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest lever that's being pulled is also this notion of not leaving out the connection to the environment, right? And that there's a within the wellness cycle, and you've spoken to me a little bit about this, but within the wellness cycle, where other developments are, let's just say, falling short, right? No judgment in some way, but also that there's an environmental impact for every development that goes on. There's a community impact. So can you talk a little bit just about that structure, like how you're making sure that the locals are involved, that the environment is also feeling safe and being taken care of in the process?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I notice with some of these conscious communities and or some of these developments that occur, I'm an expat here, right? So I came in and we purchased land and we are developing it. And oftentimes what's happening in some of these communities are that they are building a fairly insular community. This, if we look to the natural world, is set up for failure inherently. The natural world doesn't isolate itself. The natural world connects itself to its surroundings. And so this is for sure the important baseline for what we're doing as a development. And we've done that socially through a few ways. I would say where we've had the most success doing that socially is we've partnered with a local NGO called Pro Eco Azuero. And Pro Eco Azuero has existed down here for the last 20 years. They do an incredible job of reforestation in this region and have a mission to restore a biological corridor that our development actually exists within. And so when we really zoomed out, we saw that we were a part of this biological corridor. We engaged these guys to help us think about doing a restoration project on the pasture land that we had purchased. And through this team, who is just so talented. So, I mean, I've never worked with a more talented team operationally. They have teams of people out there literally cutting back grasses, doing massive reforestation initiatives. This is an entire logistical process in the wild jungle. I mean, you can imagine all of the things that have to go right in order to execute this. So I've just been blown away by them. But the other thing that they do really successfully is they go into schools and they're also working from the ground up, teaching kids about the importance of the land restoration here, teaching kids about what the the critical endangered species of monkeys that exist here, which down here is the Asuero spider monkey, and also just teaching them about the importance of this entire ecosystem, which is actually the most endangered ecosystem on the planet. And so there's this environmental connection to the community that exists here. Proco as well has done an incredible job of really going in and not just doing the land restoration, but also utilizing the schools and creating jobs for the local communities to really create a social awareness around what's going on here. So as we zoomed out and saw that we were a part of their corridor, this was our instigation to do our reforestation initiative, which also has immense benefits for our development. We've effectively planted a wild and sovereign food forest. So we talk about regenerative agriculture, which we have as a part of our project for sure, but those agriculture plots still require human intervention and human support. This wild forest is actually fully sovereign. It doesn't need human intervention or support at all because it's a full ecosystem. And so this is a food system that will actually be fully self-supported for many generations to come, feeding not just the local monkeys that exist on the land and other wildlife that are on the land, but also the humans who want to go out and actually reconnect to like the hunter-gatherer era and go out and collect papaya or mango from trees and different nuts. And so this is actually a part of our food systems that we're offering to people. It also importantly provides a lot of different potential building materials as we get into the future developments and generations of development down here. So it was really fun that actually the first thing we did on this development was to plant. We've now planted close to 40,000 trees of all native species. And this has already been so immensely abundant for us because we are protecting our watershed. We have now a new food system, where it's really connecting us to the broader community that's down here through this partnership with Proco as well. So it's been really amazing to see already the benefits that are coming from all of this.
Yeah, it's so cool. I feel like I want to ask about the monkeys a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because we were talking, I was like, are these your KPIs to help with this species and just what's going on? Like, give us a little storytelling moment about what's going on with the monkey population here.
So we have 3 different species of monkeys down here. One of them is critically endangered. It's on the list of 100 most endangered primates. So this one is the Asuero spider monkey. And it is an important KPI for us in more ways than one. I mean, I think biologically, it's an indicator for sure about our restoration of the canopy down here. It's also a very important seed disperser. So as we're hoping to bring back the habitat for these important primates, they're also really critical in bringing back that habitat. So speaking of like the system that they're a part of, and it is important for us. The last count was about 140 individuals, although we've seen on canopy some of the spider monkeys having babies. And so we want to do another count and see what the exploration and the growth is of all of this. But I think the other component from a KPI perspective and how we're monetizing this is one of the things I'm really proud of is that we are the first real estate development globally to actually be a part of producing and selling biodiversity credits. And so when you are able to identify how we can actually align the financial systems with land restoration, I think this is really exciting. And so one of the very cool things about our project is we're using the real estate to also drive a lot of innovation. And so we're kind of protecting the downside of some of the innovation developments that are going on the land with real estate. And we've utilized a lot of innovation. One of them is a land sensing system. So we've deployed sensors all across the land. And one of the tenets of permaculture development is that you listen to the land for about a year. We've kind of taken that to the next level, and we've deployed sensors all across the land. So we effectively have a smart forest system being monitoring. And that way, we actually do know how many monkeys are existing on the land. And in this way, we can actually measure it, which I think is an important component of the KPIs. But not only that, we'll actually sell and be able to sell the credits related to the improvement of the biodiversity and the improvement of the quantity of monkeys that we see on the land. And so it's both amazing. It feels good. We for sure want to bring back the endangered species of monkeys, but it also importantly, literally now can also be monetized and help with the income and that we're receiving on the land. So I think we're entering into this era where there's this opportunity to align our systems with the restoration of land, which I think is really important, really exciting. And we want to be a place that's exploring those methodologies so that more people can be, can see a model for that into the future. So that's the type of innovation that's occurring on the project as well. And it's creating a new pathway for monetization, which is just, I think, really cool. And it's something I'm really proud of exploring and hopefully can be a model that's replicated in other places.
Yeah, it's so incredible. It's just when I listen to all of the things that are going on simultaneously on the property and all the work that you're doing and the heart that you put into this project, I think the thing that bubbles up for me is like, how does it feel? Like the range of emotions, the range of challenges, because this is not by any means, this is quite innovative and not an easy project. I mean, that's my words, not yours, but like so many tentacles to the being that this whole project is. Like, how do you handle your day to day when there's so many components going on? And I'm sure that, of course, there's a team working with you, but you're really spearheading this whole thing. And so I would feel like some days I'm just like, I need a Tuesday off and a cup of tea. Like, how can I keep stepping forward? So what's the secret to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say some days I'm doing better at it than others. Like everything. I mean, we're creating a new way. At least I am for myself. And so it feels tender. Like that's the general feeling of it. And that tenderness holds a wide range of experiences and feelings. You know, when there's so much growth occurring, it's like there's this place where it feels really good. And then sometimes there's a place where it enters into overwhelm and sometimes collapse. And so the day-to-day experience is ever changing. And I think the way that it feels possible is that we're really tending to the process more than the outcomes at this point. And as opposed to coming in with this vision of us saying, hey, this is what we're doing as real estate developers, and we're going to impose this vision onto the land, we're instead really working with the land. And the phases that are most obvious to come up for development and for sale first are really presenting themselves to us. And it's felt more manageable because it's been a much more organic and natural process, as opposed to me trying to implement this set vision. I think I've really tried to feel into where the projects are from a resource perspective. And that includes our incredible team, like who's showing up to do a certain function in order for us to grow in that way. Also from a just demand in the market perspective. I think sometimes where some of these real estate projects have a hard time is they plan out for the next 5 to 10 years. We actually don't know where the market's going to be in 5 to 10 years. So how do we instead build a system that is able to be responsive to what the demand is at that time? And that way we don't have some of the same stressors of like, creating this, trying to fit something that actually doesn't fit into the entire thing. And so I think the way that the system has really been developed and is being tended to is one in which it's much more organic, much more natural. And in that way, it is more easeful. There's a lot less stress in the system, and that's felt really good. I think where it's felt new is I have made a commitment. I come from this world of a lot of stress, and not only am I committed to doing these projects in a new way and that the outcome is different from a real estate perspective, but also I've been really committed to doing them in a new way for me. I didn't come here to continue to be sick and overstressed and unwell. I came here to really live a different life for myself. And a really important component to this entire equation for me, which is that if I'm feeling overstressed, which for sure happens, it's like, okay, this is an indication. I need to take a day. I need to go be with my friends, have tea maybe on the land, like really enjoy the abundance of this land and allow it to also restore me. And so that's just been, I think, the commitment to this feeling, not easy, but inflow, easeful, also has been an important recipe for my own success in it, and I think my own resilience in it. And so it's been, I think, another level of trying to remove a limiting belief that a project of this scale has to be horrible and painful and kind of my own prison that I will eventually want to break out of. Like, how do I make this entire process exciting and fun and also full of challenges that put stress on the system, yes, but create really healthy and right-sized opportunities to grow. And so it hasn't been perfect by any means, and the system is getting better, but that's really been the North Star that I've been trying to keep in the forefront of how we do this.
Yeah. And there's this like notion of, because I'm like always thinking about nervous system tone and cold and breath and all the things I do in the world. And it's like this notion of stretching your edges. Like I can't imagine that you're not like, okay, this is stretching my edges again, but building resiliency in a way that the percentage of stretch doesn't feel like it's crushing your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're right on the edge.
Yeah.
I like to play on the edges for sure. And in order to know those boundaries, you also have to cross them. And so there are days where they're crossed and I feel overwhelmed
too far.
and I feel collapsed for sure. And then and then you get to know, and then you get to do it a little bit differently the next day, and every day it gets better. And I think at the end of this, what will feel successful for me is that it's been really fun and exciting. And so far, it really has been. There's been, of course, things that came up and everything, but mostly it's been so rewarding, and the right people have shown up at the right time. And, we've attracted the right resources to this at various parts of the project. And so a lot of the opportunity for fun has just been me getting out of my own way. Like, what if I just fully trust this process and I can trust that this is really aligned? And so the right aligned things come up at the right time. And it's really been a deep act of trust in order to explore that. And so far, it's also been really rewarding and really fun. And the number of people who have shown up just right on time have been mind-blowing. And so, yeah, it's just been a really restorative process all around.
Yeah, and it just feels to me like there's a lot of like shepherding going on, just like this like careful. I always want to say, and it's probably because I'm a woman, that there's like, it's nice to feel that there's like a feminine capacity at the helm in some way, of like with being able to kind of softly direct things in a way that just, I don't know, this is the essence of this, what this whole project and this area feels like to me. I'd love to hear just a bit about how nature has affected you more, but when I'm here, I can feel the difference, just even from being in Austin, even being a biohacker, all the things I'm doing at home. There's just like a natural course of events where even though I'm still like sitting as a red light panel in the place I'm staying in, so I'm like still sitting in front of it in the morning, it's like, well, you can walk outside. There's the beach. There's like my circadian rhythm is more connected. I'm more tired in the evenings. I'm not having so much unnatural light in my eyes. There's like a sensibility of so it's rainy season here. So it's like there's some dampness. It's like getting in the ocean. It just really feels rejuvenating in general.
Yeah.
And although I am working and we are all also playing together, it feels more like a manageable lifestyle in some way. So I'm wondering if you're feeling like components of nature affecting you in that way. And I don't know, the interrelation of you and sunlight, or just, can you speak to about some of the tools that you're getting here that are making you feel whole?
For sure. I think that's what I would say is that I feel very much a conduit of the land's intentions of itself, and for sure there's some of my own creative agency in all of this, definitely. But I think part of the nature that I am connected to here, part of what feels good is that there's this opportunity to live in more harmony. And in order to do that, though, there are a lot of different inputs into that harmonious system. And so nature is for sure a huge component to that. It's also just beautiful here. Like the sunsets are incredible. The bay is so beautiful. The natural world, the forests are so beautiful. And I've really spent the last year and a half truly hiking the land almost every single day. I mean, really explored every inch of that land. And that has been a ritual, I would say, for me that has impacted me in ways I couldn't have possibly imagined. I mean, I'm breathing in an extraordinarily diverse biome as I'm hiking through the land. And I am witnessing the beauty of the nature. Also, the nature is witnessing me. And I think in that way, we're like really supporting each other's own development and fortitude. And it's just been such an honor to observe the beauty of the space. And it feels such an honor to be able to be a steward of what wants to happen there and to let it really flow through me. And so in that way, I think I've felt just an enormous amount of connection, which feels really good. I feel the enormity of the project, but I actually feel really small in it in a way, which feels really nice. And even though one of the really cool things about Vermaculture, we were talking about it with one of our friends visiting, is that nobody here really is that much more important than anybody else. Like there's not this like hierarchy of things. Like in the same way of the community, everybody's sort of playing their role. Like my role is to be a developer of this land, yes. But there's this, I think, pretty good treatment of everybody in the community, that everybody has its place in the system of the community as well, and everybody is respected and everybody hangs out together. And the community, we all of course have our differences, but everybody really loves each other, and I think there's a deep respect for every part that is needed in order to make the community thrive. And so again, that feeling of being sort of appropriately small exists, and it's felt amazing. I really love it. It's like, it feels so good to be a part of the community. It feels so good to be a part of the nature that's here. And I think in the United States, especially, there's this sentiment that like everything has to be big and impactful and everybody is so individualistic. Like, yes, of course, like we are all individuals for sure. But when we really understand our interdependence on each other and into the natural world, I actually think that there's a feeling of much more harmony in the internal systems that feels really good if we let ourselves go there. And so that would be how I would say I've really learned from nature and my observation of it. It's been so inspirational for me in terms of understanding how to participate.
There's this epidemic of like loneliness and isolation that we're still feeling, I think, in the States, whether it's like post-COVID or whatever, but it's just in general, I think it's like the thing that's going to keep bubbling up in North America specifically, and probably many places in the world, where the emphasis on community, I think it's coming back. Like people are starting to realize I can't do this alone, but there's still a sense of many people feeling like I don't know where to find my community. And down here, it hasn't really felt like that for me. Like it was sort of interesting to land and be like, okay, I'm in this space and I'm like, it's not about jockeying for position, but like, where am I going? And how's the e-bike going to work? And where am I getting down? And how am I going to meet people? And am I going to feel like I belong, right? Like I think that's an innate question we all show up with to like the new space that we arrive in. And it was almost like that question didn't have to exist at all for me when I got here, which was really like a beautiful opening or feeling. And I wasn't just name dropping you so that everyone liked me either, you know? So yes, that's it's a beautiful notion. And I think a place where there's solutions is like building more communities in general that function this way. And in asking so many of the people that I said this to you, I was like, I'm interviewing Caroline, what should I be asking her? What's like the most important thing? And they were like, you have to ask her about, her most important business partner, Cosmo.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about, your trusted confidant, Cosmo.
Yes, Cosmo is a big character in the unfolding of this story for sure. So Cosmo is my golden retriever. He's 2 years old and he is a very big personality for sure. It's been a journey for both of us. I've been a single dog mom to him so far, and he is just full of life. And I think I've learned so much. So he's both domesticated. He lives with me, obviously, in my condo here, but he's also fairly wild. Like he grew up on Canopy, which, to be clear, is 170 hectares of wild jungle. I mean, there's literally crocodiles on the land and there's all sorts of different biodiversity that exists there. And so I think one of the ways in which Cosmo has been really important for the development of the projects is like, I'm literally following him around on all kinds of trails throughout Canopy and he's sniffing his way around, and he's been a big teacher for me in how to remember how to just like have fun and play and be rewilded in the natural landscape. And so it's been so lovely to have him as a companion. I mean, the number of days that he and I have spent on the land together, just us. I mean, it's been incredibly bonding. And he really gets to be free in Vanau. I think one of the cool parts of the culture in Vanau is that it's so safe. So a lot of the dogs are out playing outside, just with other dogs. They're not all leashed up all the time. A lot of the kids are outside just playing on the beach. And so there's just such an enormous sense of freedom. And I think I get to experience a lot of that freedom through Cosmo. I think how excited he is that he gets to just go run on the beach and go run in the ocean. And you really can't keep him out of any body of water. And so he's just been a huge teacher for me in terms of how to really love the wild and how to enjoy the freedom that exists inside of it. So He's amazing and everybody loves him. He's pretty famous. He's like very cute. He's like
He's in the hierarchy of everything. He's like the famous one.
Yes, definitely, for sure. No, everybody's like, is this Cosmo? I was like, yes, this is Cosmo. And I love having him be the forward face of everything. And it's also been a maturation for both of us. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, this project has brought out a very young and new part of me as I'm trying to discover, like, who am I in this project and who do I want to become throughout the development of this project as I'm also developing myself. And it's been an interesting balance for me to strike, like, how much do I train and discipline Cosmo and how much do I let him to be wild and free? And it's a very curious maturation question for the community as well. And so it's just brought up a lot of interesting inquiries for me of like, what do I want it to feel like? How do I want it to be? Being a dog mom is a real initiation.
It feels like it. I had the beautiful opportunity to meet him, so much so that I was like, oh, that's Caroline. I don't know, there's a dog here. You know, like being so connected to that. To that moment. Let's just briefly speak to like who this project is for.
In some ways, we're trying to kind of go out and say like, hey, we would love for these types of people to come to Vanau. Ultimately, what we're building and who I hope that attracts is we are developing real estate where we're also really taking care of healthy food systems and also healthy water. So one of the things that I think is really cool that we're doing, it's a core value of ours that people are drinking the healthiest water and eating the healthiest food and are also breathing in the healthiest air. So we're really investing into the foundations of health. So in some ways, who it's for is anybody who really cares about that. I think I'm hopeful that we live in a world one day where all communities care about those things and everybody's drinking really healthy water and eating food that really nourishes them.
Can you talk about the thing you told me in the car that I thought was so fascinating, that you're like how you've extended the water table or how you've extended the periphery of what's happening with water?
Absolutely.
So, I know I just interrupted the answer to that question, but I want to just divert to that.
I think it's a really cool part of the project. So in some ways, we can handle clean water at the filtration level at the home. And that's an amazing way to do that. We will do that also. But another way to think about it is how do you also really solve the healthy water component at the source? And so what we've done as a development is actually purchase the land that goes around the watershed that feeds our development. It's called Quebrada Venado. And so we've purchased most of the land that surrounds that quebrada. Quebrada is sort of like a ravine. And by purchasing the land around it, we've been able to restore that land, reforest it. The root systems of that reforestation initiative also cleans the water, but it also protects from agricultural chemicals from dumping into that watershed. And so yes, we can treat the water at the home level with filtration, but we can also really protect the origin of the water. And I think that's what we mean. That's a good example of the living systems that we're really talking about. And then from a food system perspective, I'm really excited about all of the food systems. We have the sovereign food forest, which we had talked about with the reforestation initiative. But we also are doing some very cool and very innovative agroforestry systems. So along the Quebrada, which is where a lot of the water is collecting into the soil as well, we are doing some very interesting syntropic rotational farming that people will be able to walk alongside. So there's cool walking paths along this quebrada. You've got the watershed on one side of you, the food systems on the other side of you. And so you can really walk alongside the things that are nourishing you on the land. And this is, I think, fun and interesting, and it feels good for people. We also have some greenhouses, and then we're also going to be exploring with this vermaculture system that is basically using worms to eat a lot of the compost that is coming out of the community. And those worms are able to generate that into extremely healthy soil. And we'll be doing these cool soil sleeves using this vermiculture technique to produce very high nutrient dense food systems. Not just no chemicals, but very, very nutrient dense. And in this way, utilize a lot of the food scraps in the community to create even more healthier food. And so these are the types of systems that I think are just so interesting, and they're somewhat innovative, but in other ways, they're very ancient. So like these systems are they exist in nature. They've existed for a really long time. And so I think that there's a massive opportunity for us as humans to ask ourselves, like, how do we actually move ourselves out of this extractive, frankly, invasive species that we exist as today into actually keystone species where we can create more life wherever we are. We can look to the natural world as our inspiration for how to do this. But the natural world has also given us this incredible tool, which is our minds. And these minds have developed extraordinary technologies. We can actually use these technologies to contribute positively to our living systems. And I hope that who we're attracting to the projects are people who are curious about doing that, and that we don't have to be fearful of the technology that's being developed in this world today. We actually can think about how do we use that technology to further connect us to our natural world. What I think is such an important opportunity for us to move into, which is that we can be keystone species. We can create more life everywhere we go. And not only, I think, is it important to do, but it's also fun to do. It's also beautiful. It's also regenerative in terms of how we get to feel as we're doing it. And so this is really what the project has taught me so far. And I'm really hopeful that we draw more people down here who are curious about living that type of life and contributing positively to the system as well. And so far, it's just been really exciting who's come already. And
it's a mix of people who may come down here and decide to actually settle and spend the majority of their time here, and people who will come here intermittently with other families or other, different sections of the year.
There will for sure be tourism down here. And so the tourism is developing. I think we see Vanau already has a big mix of people who live here full time, people who live here for a month of the year and then rent out the places. And so we're very much building it for a full range of that. I, though, really care deeply that because so much of the benefit of the development is also actually being here and eating the food and drinking the water that exists on the land, that people actually do come and spend time down here, are invested in that part of the opportunity as well. And so my hope is that people are excited to spend a meaningful amount of time down here, enjoy the incredible community that's forming down here, and also be nourished by the land that they're a part of restoring. And so that's ideally, my ideal is that people are spending, a good amount of time down here who are moving. And for sure, we're excited to grow the full-time community down here as well. Most of us, live down here for a good chunk of the year, travel, explore other places, but are really excited to call this place home. And so that's who I am excited to hopefully bring down more of.
Yeah, so sweet.
Yeah.
I always like to kind of wrap the show with a couple of questions. I think the first thing I want to ask you is just from interacting with nature, and you've talked so much about the things that you're doing, but is there something that is your daily must do when it comes to self-care, morning routine, evening routine, whatever it might be? Is there something that you're just I love this and need this wholeheartedly to be able to do my day-to-day and feel like the best version of myself?
For me, what it has been so far has been just taking a pause whenever I am in nature, which is most of the time, to really breathe in the nature. And I don't have a set routine in that, I wake up and I meditate or I cold plunge, but I definitely find moments to meditate in nature. But I try to make it, as opposed to sitting down for my 20-minute meditation, just very conscious into every step that I'm taking on the land is what am I doing to bring myself to the full presence right now? Luckily in the jungle, there are all sorts of triggers to do this because you're whoa, I need to watch where I'm going.
Fire ants and snakes.
And so it's sort of always this callback to nature. And I would say the practice for me is letting it call me back to nature. So not blocking myself from resisting that invitation. And it's been really an amazing systemic change for me to soften my sometimes ritualistic habits. I was an athlete in college, and so I was very much into wake up and do these routines and da-da-da. It's actually been a softening for me to be just present with the nature, and this is really what's been the most restorative so far.
I love that. Feels like that to me down here as well. The other question I always ask is if you could go back and have a conversation with teenage Caroline and impart some wisdom that you've learned along the journey to be able to step fully into your wellness or fully into the peak expression of the woman that you are starting at that age, what would be that piece of advice that you would share with her?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. I don't know if it would be advice as much as just that it ends up so great, that everything is really perfect, and whatever the turmoil is of the moment, that it all has its place and it really ends up even better. And sometimes I astro project into the future and have that future version of myself tell myself that in this moment as well. And just remembering that every step of the way is in some way sort of divinely orchestrated. And especially when we align ourselves with nature, that is true even more. And so that's really what I would tell myself, I think, in that moment, probably just to help my nervous system as that teenage girl. That's probably the biggest health benefit that I could give her, is that it's all perfect and it's all going to work out. And yeah, and I'm really just so excited, even when I think about my future self talking to me today, to just continue to come back to that reminder that's very grounding, that whatever it is, it's all really perfect and it's all unfolding just as to plan.
Yeah, it's amazing. And for everyone who's listening, who's navigating big things in their life, just that's a reminder for them as well. Yeah, so beautiful. Is there anything that we have missed that we want to tap into, and how can people find more out about everything that you're doing down here in this project?
The last thing I'd like to say, or to invite people to consider, is that we are all a part of these systems, no matter what we're doing. And so I would just make an invitation in all of the professions, and really everybody in the world has this opportunity to think about what system they're contributing to. And I think a really great way to begin that process is to go out into nature. The most sophisticated, wise, ancient system that exists is the natural world, and it can be the groundwork for our inspiration on how to remember how to do this. And if people want to learn more and get involved, we have a really incredible Instagram account that has documented a lot of the journey so far along the way. It's called Canopy Vanau. And we also have some websites and URLs that we can drop in with you into the episode to share with people. But I think the biggest call to action that I would have is to just really invite everybody to consider how they're participating in the systems around them. And if they want to come down and see what that looks like at a real estate level, we have a very cool opportunity to do that.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, for chatting all about this incredible project. And I can't wait to see how it continues to evolve.
Yes, thank you for joining us here on Well Power. You can submit questions, learn more, shop incredible brands, and connect with me at wellpower.life, or follow me on social at biohacking.breath.cold. From comfort to courage, friends, we're doing it. Any foul language you hear is not approved by my mother.